Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Look, you know the words, you even know the tune. Hell, even if you weren't alive in 1967, that brassy, infectious theme song is hardwired into the DNA of all comic book fans. Beyond the music and the memes, there lies a bizarre, fascinating and often chaotic piece of television history. Look, the 1967 Spider-Man animated series wasn't just the wall crawler's first jump from page to screen. It was a masterclass in making it work on a shoestring budget. Today, we're swinging back to the 60s to look at the production, the people, and the psychedelic Bakshi years, and the lasting legacy of the show that gave us the pointing meme that was heard around the world. In the mid-60s, Marvel was exploding following the success of the Marvel Superheroes series that was in 1966, which was essentially just comic panels barely moving at best. Producer Ray Patterson and the company Grantray-Lawrence Animation were tapped to bring Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's prize creation to life. Season 1 premiered on the ABC television network on the 9th of September 1967, produced by Grantray-Lawrence and Krantz Films. It actually had a decent budget for that time. So this is why season 1 looks the most like a traditional cartoon. They had unique backgrounds, relatively stable character models, and a focus on all those classic Spider-Man villains like Dr. Octopus, the Lizard, the Scorpion, and of course the Green Goblin. However, Grantray-Lawrence went bankrupt in 1968, largely as a result of financial difficulties and a protracted legal battle with their own distributor, Krantz Films. Now, most shows would have just died right there and then, but no, not our Spider-Man. The show was a hit, and to keep the web-spinning crime fighter going, Krantz Films took the production in-house and hired a young, ambitious animator who would later become a legend of counterculture cinema. That's right, Ralph Bakshi. Now, when Ralph Bakshi took over for season 2 and 3, the budget didn't just shrink, it practically evaporated. Bakshi, who was more well known for his later work on Fritz the Cat and the 1978 Lord of the Rings, had to get creative, and this is where the show gets, well, really weird. Now, to save some money, Bakshi started reusing animation, and look, I don't just mean Spidey swinging past the same building twice type sort of stuff. For example, in the episode Phantom of the Depths of Time, they famously reused an entire sequence of backgrounds and character movements from another Krantz produced show, Rocket Robin Hood. And look, if the scenery looks more like some outer space setup than New York City, that's because it literally was. This era gave the show its dark look. Bakshi utilised moody, impressionistic paintings for the backgrounds to hide the lack of, well, detail. While it was a cost-cutting measure, it accidentally gave the show a real unique, noirish, psychedelic atmosphere that set it apart from the bright, colourful Super Friends style of cartoons that followed the decade after. Now look, we can't talk about this show without talking about, yes, the voice of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, Paul Soles. Now, Soles brought a certain everyman charm to this role, a mix of teenage earnest, shall you say, and heroic duty. He definitely put his mark on Spider-Man for some of us fans of a certain age, shall we say, as this will be the voice of Spider-Man we would all hear in our heads for years to come. But look, we cannot forget the rest of the cast, featuring Paul Klingman as the quintessential J. Jonah Jameson and Peg Dixon as Betty Brant and Mary Jane Watson. Then there was the music. This theme song was composed by the Academy Award winning Paul Francis Webster and Bob Harris. But the incidental music, that was a library of jazz fusion tracks that felt like they belonged in a cool 60s spy flick. It gave the show a cool factor that resonated with college students of that era, not just kids, becoming one of the most well-known TV show theme songs in the history of, well, TV show theme songs. Now, because of the Rush production, this show is an absolute goldmine of trivia and hilarious errors. So, for instance, look, much of the series, Spider-Man's costume only had webs on his head, his arms, and on his boots. His torso was just solid red, which has always been the most asked question about this show. Why did they do that? Well, the answer is actually quite simple, because drawing webs is time consuming and expensive.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Now, we can't talk about this show without looking at the meme factory this show has become in the last decade or so. For example, there's the desktop Spider-Man meme, that image of Spidey sitting behind a desk with a picture of himself on the wall. It's just pure 1967 gold. And of course, the most famous meme of all, the Spider-Man pointing meme, which comes from the episode Double Identity, where a villain tries to impersonate our hero, leading to a standoff that has dominated the internet for over a decade now, and even made cameos in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the Peacemaker TV show.
Hey! Oh, the Spider-Man meme!
Also, fun fact, there was an urban legend for years that the show was secretly a drug-fueled project due to the visuals of the later seasons. While Bakshi has laughed these off, their heavy use of stock footage and weird monster of the week plots certainly fueled the fire amongst, well, some fans. For collectors tracking down this show, it's been a bit of a saga, especially during the VHS era in the 80s and the 90s, with the companies like Prism Entertainment and Marvel Video releasing individual episodes and movie-style edits with no real complete episode runs out there for the fans to collect. But the breakthrough finally come in the form of, yes, the DVD release in 2004 to coincide with the release of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, with Buena Vista Video Home Entertainment releasing the Spider-Man 67 collection. It was an awesome 6-disc box set containing all 52 episodes in a beautiful retro looking case with matching discs and a nice color booklet, which has since become highly sought after by collectors on the second-hand market. But what about Blu-ray or 4K, you ask? Well, sadly, it's a bit of a legal and technical nightmare, as the original 35mm master, let's just say it's a little rough and out of shape. And between Disney owning Marvel and Sony owning the film rights, its high definition restoration isn't going to happen anytime soon. So for now, this beautiful DVD box set is your best way of owning this show. Hey look, so for me, not only is this one of the most prized and valuable collector pieces I have in my collection, but it's a huge sentimental value to me as well, as this cartoon meant so much to me as a kid. Watching it in reruns on early morning TV back in the 80s, it just show really sparked my imagination and made me a really young fan of Spider-Man and really superheroes in general at that time. Sure, look, it's a product of its time. It was done on the cheap, but for me, look, my nostalgia goggles for this show just see past any and all of those shortcomings of this cartoon as it has to offer. It just lets me go back in time to remember the joy of watching it as a kid. And look, you really can't put a price on that at all. For me, this one is a 10 out of 10 and a must-have for any collector, big or small, as this is a massive part of comic book and superhero cartoon history. So, was the 1967 Spider-Man a success or a failure? Well, in terms of production, it was a mess. It was cheap, recycled, and often nonsensical at best. But in terms of impact, it was a huge triumph. It was the first time we would hear Peter Parker's voice. It established the Spider-Man theme song as one of the most recognizable pieces of music in human history. And it paved the way for the 90s animated series, the Spectacular Spider-Man show, and eventually the MCU Spider-Man. It's a show that just refuses to die, with living on in memes, in the hearts of nostalgic boomers and Gen Xers like myself, and in the very DNA of every Spider-Man story told since. It was weird, it was cheap, and it was just downright wonderful.
That was the greatest thing my eyeballs have ever seen.
Next week on the show, we are going to see what I've picked up for the month of December 2025. So make sure you come back and check that out. Thanks for watching.